Moment I thought his tone was laden with special meaning, and then I figured that probably some of the girls at the Amazon were secretaries at the UN, and maybe he had taken one of them out at one time. I let him hang up first, and then I hung up and lay back in the pillows, feeling grim. There I went again, building up a glamorous picture of a man who would love me passionately the minute he met me, all out of a few prosy things. A duty tour of the UN and a post-UN sandwich. I tried to jack up my morale. Probably Mrs. Willard's simultaneous interpreter would be short and ugly, and I would come to look down on him in the very same way I looked down on Buddy Willard. This thought gave me certain satisfaction, because I did look down on Buddy Willard, and although everybody still thought I would marry him when he came out of the TV place, I knew I would never marry him, even if he was the last man on earth. Buddy Willard was a hypocrite. Of course, I didn't know he was a hypocrite at first. I thought he was the most wonderful boy I had ever met. I'd adored him from afar for 5 years before he even looked at me. And then there was a beautiful time when I still adored him, and he started looking at me. And then there was him just looking at me more and more, when I quietly discovered, quite by accident, what an awful hypocrite he was, and how he wanted to marry me, and I hated his guts. The worst part of it was, I couldn't come straight out and tell him what I thought of him, because he caught TB before I could do that. And now I had to humor him along until he got well again and could take the unvarnished truth. I decided not to go down to the cafeteria for breakfast. It would only mean getting dressed, and what was the point of getting dressed if you were staying in bed for the morning? I could have called down and asked for a breakfast tray in my room, I guess. But then I would have to tip the person who brought it up, and I never knew how much to tip. I'd had some very unsettling experiences trying to tip people in New York. When I first arrived at the Amazon, a dwarfish bald man in a bellhop's uniform carried my suitcase up in the elevator and unlocked my room for me. Of course, I had rushed immediately to the window and looked to see what the view was. After a while, I was aware of this bellhop turning on the hot and cold water taps in my wash bowl and saying, "This is the hot and this is the cold." And then switching on the radio and telling me the names of all the New York stations, and I had begun to get uneasy. So I kept my back firmly to him and said, "Thank you for bringing up my suitcase." "Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ha!" he said in a very insinuating tone. Before I could wheel around to see what had come over him, he was gone, shutting the door behind him with a rude slam.